Hi everyone, it's Kerry back with you today, and I'm here today to share our April freebie for our collaboration with the Playing with Paper and Glue group. And as usual, Reenie's outdone herself, and this time we have this tiny little folio, which is super cute, but it is stuffed with so many things, and there's so many different ways to use the items in this kit. So this is just one of the things that I have created, and I've got a few other things that I want to show you today. So I'll bring in the pages so you can see them. So you can see by the size here, these are two A4 sheets, so you can see that it's actually quite a tiny cute little folio. So we have two sheets as usual, a whole load of elements and some pockets, and the folio front, some journaling cards, and a strip here that you could use as washi tape or just elements, but I'm going to show you another way to use that. And I'm also going to show you a couple of ways to use this pocket section here. All of these different elements down here can be used on their own, of course, but you'll find a lot of them are actually partnered so that you can either fold them over and use them back to front, including these ones here, or you can of course cut them separately and then back them onto some other paper if you so choose. So I'm just going to bring in some of the bits that I've already cut and I'll show you what I did. To create my folio, I have cut out this section from this page and I've left this washi strip or little elements strip attached. Now the reason that I've done that is because I want to use that element strip like I've done here. All I have done is cut it out and folded it up, so this actually creates a little tiny pocket on the front here. So I want to score along this line here, and then I want to score each of these lines as well, so I'll just quickly do that. Okay, so I've scored and folded all of my lines, and I've just folded up the little edge here to give me like the beginnings of the pocket. So the next thing I want to do is cut out this entire section here from the page. Okay, so now I've got this piece, and again I want to fold this on each of these lines here. So now I have this piece like this. Now I'm going to pop this flap forward and then let this piece sit inside that little pocket, and then I will attach this, but before I do that, because I now have a few different layers of paper in the edges of these creases, I want to reduce the bulk a little bit, so I'm just going to take my pocket piece and a pair of scissors. Now I've got about a centimetre's worth of room here, so I know that I can snip up to about a centimetre. If you don't feel comfortable just eyeballing it, you can put a little mark, just so you know not to cut above that mark there. And I'm just going to take a little section out, like a little triangular section out of this corner, and I'm going to do that on all three of these pieces here. So this one I can just copy it, and this one I'm just going to eyeball. So now when I pop this in here, those little snips will be covered up by the edge of this pocket, but there's not quite as much bulk in the corners when I fold it closed. So the next thing I want to do is the back part of this is obviously quite white because I've printed it on white paper, and I don't really want it to stay white, even though a lot of it will get covered up when we start decorating. So I'm going to bring in some glue paper, and I'm just going to use ink to put a little bit of colour on the background here. Now I've picked bundled sage as my colour. It matches the digi quite well, I think. And I'm just going to come in with my stencil brush and pop down some colour onto that background. Now I only need to come up about halfway because the pockets will hide the rest of it. And I'm not really fussed about how even this is. Again, we're going to do some stenciling over the top. You won't see a lot of it because it will be covered by the items in the pockets. So I think that's probably good enough. And then I'm going to bring in just a little stencil. I've got a little number stencil here, and I'm going to stick with the same colour. And I'm just going to go over the stencil sort of randomly. I don't mind if some bits are lighter and darker. I think that adds to it. Okay, so that gives a little bit of variety in the background there. Now you could, if you didn't have stencils, you could use stamping or anything you like really, just to give the background some interest. And then I'm just going to go in with some walnut stain. And just put a little bit of ink on the edges there. So that covers up most of it. I could have gone a little bit further down here. So I'll just go back in with my brush and just add a little bit more ink on those corners. Okay, so I think that's good enough. Like I said, you're not going to see most of it once it's filled up with the bits and pieces. So now I'm ready to glue in my pockets, and I want to allow as much space as possible in the pockets because it's quite a small folio. So I'm going to just pop a little bit of glue on the end, and same on this end. And then I'm just going to run a very thin bead of glue right up the seam or the crease, just to help separate those pockets a little bit. Then taking my piece and lining it up with this bottom flap and the edges of my page. And just giving that a good press down. Now before you try to fold it again, you want to let it dry properly. And then you can either choose to glue this whole thing down straight over the top, but then you won't have these as little pockets. Or if you want to keep these as little pockets as well, you do the same thing, just a little bit of glue on each end, and then in the middle where the creases are. And press that down and allow those to dry. So while that's drying, I'll just set that over to the side and show you something else with these pockets. Okay, so I've got another one of these pages, and we're going to cut out this pocket section, but we're going to include these two pieces as part of the bit that we cut out, and I'll show you why in just a sec. So to begin with, I'm just going to cut along this line here. And then I want to cut this section away, but I need to leave these two pieces intact. So once I've got this cut out, I've purposely left these two little white pieces on the edges, and I'll explain that to you in a moment. Now this gives us option to make one double pocket or two single double-sided pockets. I know that sounds a bit confusing, but I'll explain as we go. So we'll first make the double pocket. So this is exactly the same as that. I've just already cut this one out. I've popped a little bit of ink on the inside here, and I've gone ahead and scored on all of my lines, including where these little edges are here. So the first thing I want to do is bring this middle piece down once I've scored, and then fold this little side panel in and then fold this little side panel in, and you can see how that will give me a double pocket that is coloured all the way around. There's no exposed pieces, but it's not so bulky because there's only a little piece of paper here rather than having two full sheets of paper plus a third sheet here. So you can go ahead and glue these flaps down. Now I also have angled, so here's my score line here. I've also just cut the tiniest little sliver off on each side, just so that when I fold it I'm not catching it in the fold and creating unnecessary bulk. So we've glued that down. Then I can pop a little bit of glue just along this flap here. So that gives me the maximum amount of room possible in this pocket. If you aren't really worried about having the extra space, you can cut that flap off and then just glue, so pretend that flap's not there, and then just glue along the edge here, and that will stick down here. It just won't give you as much room inside the pocket. So that's why I've left that little flap on, just so I can have something a little bit wider in the pocket. So that's that, and we've popped that ink in the middle there just so there's no white sort of poking through from the middle of our double fold there. So you can fold it up and have it like a little booklet, or just have it sitting open and you've got two pockets there. So of course to have two single pockets like this, it's the same sort of thing. You're just going to cut this middle line as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and score my lines now. And I'll leave one with the flap, and on this one I'll cut the flap off so you can see the difference. So again, I'll just glue this top flap down. A little bit of glue on this side flap here. And a little bit of glue on the bottom. And same with this one, top flap first. And then on this one I'm just going to pop a very skinny bead on the edge and along the bottom. So that gives me my little pockets. So I really love the way that Reenie's put these together, and that she's thought about sort of every little details to make the pockets as user-friendly as possible. So bringing back our little folio that is all dry now. So all of these along the front here are little pockets where you can pop something small. And then we've got our larger pockets at the back here. Now you may need to go in with your ruler just to make sure you haven't left any unwanted glue anywhere. And then you should be able to slide your cards and bits and pieces into those pockets. So small things at the front here and bigger things at the back. And I just wanted to quickly show you, I won't do all of the decorating because it's, you know, very much a personal preference on how you decorate. But I've stuck things down, I've left some things loose so they can be taken in and out. But just a couple of little tips for some of the other bits and pieces in the kit. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the pieces have been cut or have been created so they are double-sided. So you just need to look at the pieces and most of them will be self-explanatory. So this one, obviously you can just fold it in half and you get a double-sided journaling card. Or you can cut them separately and then have them as two separate pieces. The playing cards, again, you'll notice that they are upside down to one another, but that is so that you can fold it in half in the middle, and then you will have a double-sided card that is the correct orientation on both sides. She's done that with a lot of the bits and pieces. The same with this pair of tags. They're upside down to each other, but it's so you can just fold them in half, and then each side would be up in the correct direction. Now, when you're creating this particular tag, I found it easier to just cut out the sides, get those nice and straight, then fold it along the bottom and cut this edge shape once you have glued these two pieces together if you're going to have them back to back, rather than have to try to cut out the two separate sides and then get them to match. Once you've cut it out, if there's a little bit of white showing on one side or the other, you can either tidy that up with the scissors or just use a little bit of ink. And then lots of these other bits and pieces can be used. Again, you could fold this and then have it as a double-sided element, or you can use them just as individual pieces to stick on. Same with the tickets. Again, I find with the tickets it's easier to fold them first and then try and cut out the little sections afterwards. And these little tabs have been created to be double-sided when you fold them over the top of a page. So folding that, then I'll cut my angles. And then I can take let's just use this one. So if this was my double-sided tag and I would have glued it together, I can take my little label, pop it over the top, and then I've got, again, a little double-sided element there where I'm not having to try to find two pieces that match to stick back to back. So there we go, lots and lots of elements and variation with this freebie. I'm sure you guys are going to come up with a million different things. It was really fun to create, and I love the fact that it's got so many of these like little tiny pockets and bits and pieces that you can use in different ways. The links to the group will be in the description box below, and this digi will be available exclusively within the Playing with Paper and Glue Facebook group for the month of April. And then on the 1st of May it will be available to those of you that don't do Facebook in our shop, and links will be below to that as well. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you again next time. Bye.